Welcome to the Humanist Podcast. I'm your host, Ken Stearns. Join us on a journey where we unravel the intricacies of workplace dynamics. Good morning, everybody. I'm your host of the Humanist Podcast, Ken Stearns. I'm here in Portland. Just another beautiful day, kind of a little cloudy. That Portland weather thing. After having about 5 just amazingly beautiful blue skies, sunny days, 70s. So really fantastic time of the year here, springtime. And I just love this time of year. Super excited for our next guest, Joe Rando. We've had some really good pre-chat, and I've also had an opportunity to attend his live streams, I guess, or lifestar.com, the Lifestar programs for solopreneurs. Really interesting, and love what was going on there. And I'm a fan, Joe, and I'll dial in when I can. And we'll get to a little bit of that. But what was the journey to get to a place where you are on your own and starting to build something really, again, I guess, like we talked about, you're a serialpreneur. How did you end up in this space, helping other people?
Do you want me to go back all the way back, or do you want me to just talk about the most recent?
Yeah, I think just a little bit of a short version of how you got here, I think is okay.
Okay, sure. So it's a weird story.
Yeah.
I started out with a degree in physics and was working in fiber optics, using optical fiber for data communications, and did that for a while. Decided, always wanted to start my own business, and said, I'm going to do it. And so my father convinced me that I probably should learn something about business before I did it. So I kind of crammed in an 18-month MBA, and in the process discovered that there was a lot going on in the real estate industry with respect to people coming up into the Northeast, Home Depot and Target and all these big box stores. And so I ended up developing shopping centers. And in the process, I developed some technology to figure out where to put them. Went through with using that, developed about 1 million square feet of retail, spun that off in the process into a separate company called Retail Analytics, which started operating in 1994, which, if that date sounds familiar, it's the same date the internet kind of became a thing. So the entire process of building out this tech to help people figure out where to put stores, while all the stores were thinking, are there going to be stores? And so they were all focused on getting their internet presence, their online shopping functioning. And we really got a few customers and ran up against a brick wall. So I gracefully shut it down in 1999, stayed friends with all the people that worked there, and rebooted it with a partner, one of the people that I hired in 2004 or so, when the world was more ready. And that worked out well, grew that. And we sold it in 2020. That was an enterprise software company, basically helping retailers and retail real estate companies or shopping center owners and things figure out where to put what in terms of retail, and kind of keeping track of all their retail processes. So it was enterprise software, servers, desktop analytics, web apps, mobile apps, the whole 9 yards, all connected together. And so it was good. It was a really good product. It was a really good experience, but it was big. Every deal was took 18 months to close. It was big money, and so very, very long processes. So sold the company. What was I going to do? Everybody thought I was going to retire.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Yeah. So I said, I had an idea for an app. And the original company, the software company, came from an idea I wanted to buy, couldn't buy it because it didn't exist, so I built it. I had this other thing I wanted to buy, couldn't buy it because it didn't exist, so I said I want to build it. So basically, it was a tool to manage tasks with people, anybody, not just people on your team. So all these apps I could buy for task management were team-based, right? And I said, I want to manage tasks with people that don't work for me, that aren't on my team, or even people that don't use the app. So I was imagining it. And of course, once I saw the company, I had some time, started trying to figure out how it would work, started building it, teamed up with some good guys to help me build that out. And so we started building the app. It turned out to be a very challenging thing to do. We're about 85, 90% of the way there now, a few years later.
Whoa.
But in the meantime, the question was, where are you going to sell this? Where do you find people that want to work beyond their team? Not really a thing, right?
Yeah.
So I work with this woman, Carly Reese. She's a marketing expert. And she said, solopreneurs don't have a team. They're kind of a natural. And I said, that makes sense. So let's find out where they are, and we'll go, we can market the app there. Well, in the meantime, I go looking for where the solopreneurs go and hang out. It doesn't exist.
And it doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. And I said, gee, this isn't going to work. And then I said, wait a minute. I started doing some digging. If you include side hustles, there's like well over 50 million solopreneurs just in the US. If you look at coaches and freelancers and consultants and everything else, these people that are working as a one-person business. And I said, there should be a place. So we kind of slowed down the app development and focused on building out that place for people to go, kind of an ecosystem. And that's what LifeStar is. It's basically a place where solopreneurs can come together. We have a community. We have these events. We have tons of content. And more recently, we've just started kind of softly releasing our paid tiers, which include, other kind of, events, as well as office hours where people can come in and ask questions about their business, get help. We've got an AI trained on all of our extensive catalog of content to answer business questions from a solopreneur's perspective, instead of kind of a general, subject matter expert or somebody that works for a big company perspective, which you get a lot out of like things like ChatGPT. So that's, I guess that's my version of the journey. It was, there was this idea that there wasn't a place for these people, but the interesting thing was I didn't end up just with a target market. I ended up with some of the most awesome people I've ever gotten a chance to work with. Solopreneurs, I mean, with very, very incredibly few exceptions, have just turned out to be my favorite people. There's something about them. And I think it's the fact that they're willing to sacrifice, go into the challenge of having a business, but sacrifice the ability to scale with that employees give you, because there's something more they want out of life. There's something else that they're looking for besides just, they want to make money, they want to survive, they want to do well. But there's something else, something bigger that they're after. And that's really cool.
That's an interesting thread that you started to see. That they're looking for something more. A lot of them come out of corporate.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them come out of corporate. I'm running right now on LinkedIn a little poll and asking people, why did you become a solopreneur? And
great.
With those polls, you can only have like 4 answers. But the big one seemed to be, I wanted to have freedom to pursue some other aspect of my life, family time or a hobby or whatever. And then the other one is, I like doing the work I like to do. Those are the biggies so far, at least.
Doing the work that I like to do.
Right. So if you're working for a corporation, they're going to be having you do things maybe that you don't like doing. Whereas as a solopreneur, you can take the work you want, refuse the work you don't. If some aspect of your job you don't like, you farm it out to some other company or solopreneur. And this is people kind of crafting their own life.
Biggest surprise so far? I mean, biggest kind of aha, like I didn't see this, because you're an imagineering kind of person. You obviously can see things in your head, in your brain. You would have imagined what this looks like.
I mean, there's, I think the biggest surprise, as I already gave you, which was the fact that they're just a very large group of really awesome people.
Okay.
I mean, just if you look at humanity as a whole, and you kind of go out in the world and you see, what percentage of the experiences you have with people are, very positive versus neutral or negative.
Okay.
It's really high in this group of people.
Yeah,
and so I think that's my biggest surprise, just because, who would expect that? I expected kind of the cross section to be similar to what I experienced in my everyday life, but other surprises, I think one of the other surprises is that when people get into becoming solopreneurs, a lot of them don't, I think they make the same mistakes. A lot of people make the same mistakes, if you will.
Yes.
And so my first question when I said solopreneurs, I'm one of these people that's always like, focus, figure out your niche and go there. And you say solopreneurs, I mean, you're talking about coaches, consultants, contractors, people that are truly kind of entrepreneurs that going solo. And can these people all be put into a single place and help each other? So I guess that was the other one. I knew that was the question, and I set out to answer that early on in the process. And so we did this thing called, it's an event called the Solopreneur Problem Solvers. And it's kind of it's a monthly event. It's free. People come in, you have to be in business for at least a year so that you're not just kind of getting started, but people come in and they share their current biggest challenge. So we put people, 50, 60 people show up or whatever it is, and we put them into breakout rooms of 3 or 4, and they present their challenge and the others try to help them. And the results, even though we're not separating people by vertical, so to speak, we're putting, people that develop apps with people that are coaches, that people that are, and the feedback is that it's really helpful. And it's this kind of cross-pollination thing where people are saying, hey, I do it this way. And the other person is saying, well, I do it that way, but your way sounds better. And so there's a lot of cross-pollination, and a lot of the problems and challenges and maybe mistakes that are happening are similar enough that this whole group can help each other. So, and then it also lets us put together materials to help people avoid these common mistakes as they get going.
Oh yeah. You're talking about the people that you're finding, good humans as solopreneurs. And I think if you look at flourishing, kind of talk a little bit about the title of the show, The Humanist, and in pursuit of flourishing. And I think you've got people who are at a place in their life, whether they're young or old, but they're in a kind of a growth level where they're starting to look for something other, something more. And they kind of sense there's something else, and they kind of take that risk. It's a growth. I think going out on your own is a giant stretch. You're gonna grow a lot. And like you said, you're going to make some mistakes. And in that, you learn, it's a lot of learning. So it is that kind of that pursuit of flourishing. And I think if you're there, if you're willing to take those risks and you're in that place in your life, then, you kind of got to be a good human. Otherwise, you won't last very long by yourself. You can't hide. It's really all out there, right? You're laying it all out.
Yeah, it's it's a big. I mean, we have a hashtag for it, Life Leap. When you quit the job and start into that solo business, and it's like it's a leap. I mean, you are taking a leap of faith. And the bottom line is it doesn't always work out. And the main thing that we find is that you have to be ready to adjust, right? You have to be ready to change the plan, because it's never going to work the way you expect it's going to work. It's always going to be. I got this meme I found on the internet, and I saved it, and I refer to it every once in a while. But I think this is true of all entrepreneurs, and solopreneurs included. And it's like a banner, and it says, "We do this not because it's easy," and then in small print it says, "but because we thought it would be easy." And I think that sums up every solopreneur and entrepreneur in the history of the world.
Oh, God, I love that.
And that's one of the things that I think, we're trying to address here is, as you get into this, and I do it. I've started a bunch of companies, started this one, thought, hey, this will be easy. I got this great idea. I know it's going to be great. Build out an app that people can, work with anybody. It's almost like Facebook for working together instead of sharing cat videos. Oh, this is great. And it's like, yeah, it's hard. And so I'll never not make that mistake. But I think that's why humans can be entrepreneurs, because we always see it as being, this won't be hard. I got this. And then you get in there and you're like, oh no, but you're already in. So now you got to stick with this. So we're trying to build out a thing where people can come together and kind of support each other through that journey of figuring out what they didn't figure out initially.
I so align with everything what you just said. Absolute, fully on my experience. Driving around the country, interviewing 444 people in a van. Wow. I got 111 cities to hit.
That doesn't sound easy at all, though.
But I think sometimes in the solopreneur's brain, it just like, I got that. That's easy.
Yeah,
I
it'll
can
be
do
fun.
that. And Netflix will have them pick me up by the time I'm in the 6th city or 10th city, and it'll all be roses. Let's pull a question from the jar, Joe. Let's take a little.
Uh-oh.
And I got some other questions written down. Excuse me. Yeah, so these are questions from the jar. I wrote these for the podcast called The Jar, and as I said, traveling around the country, interviewing people in their homes with a big set of big jar of questions. Okay, so here we go. Question from the jar for Joe. Can you share with us the best part of a bad memory? This is actually kind of reminds me almost of this last conversation. You share with us the best part of a bad memory.
Yeah, I could. There's a bunch, but I'm gonna go with one. And this is a little strange, but I had a friend from high school, and shortly after high school, we'd stayed friends, kind of gone on different directions, and he had ended up getting into some trouble with some tough guys near where he was renting a place, and said, I got to move out of here. And can you help me move my stuff? So I drove out, and we were moving his stuff into his car, and these guys showed up. And so we were at this kind of standoff, and one of our other kind of acquaintance friends came along in a car and saw what was happening and basically chose to leave. Now, they didn't care about me or them. They cared about this guy. And I stayed there, and it got very, very scary. There were firearms involved. Not that they were discharged, but they were present. And it was a very scary thing and an awful situation. But, in the end, we managed to kind of work it out and move on. And I just look back and go, I stuck with my friend. I stuck with my friend. So I guess that was the happy memory of a very awful situation, was that,
could have gone any direction.
And so that I think, if you look at one of the worst situations I've ever been in, that was the kind of the good thing, was I got to know that, you always wonder, what are you going to do when you're in that situation?
Yeah.
And
I
I said, at least I know what I did then.
It is interesting. Even, there's a lot of things that happen in life that do kind of shape us. And I think it is one of the ones like that, right? Burned memory I'm sure you can still see the firearm in the person's waistband or in their hand. And it's just that's called a memory, right? It really is burned. I had a couple questions for you on the, when you were talking before, common mistakes. You talked a bit about that. What's a couple of the, if you're a solopreneur, what are those things that you just, every time you go, yep, I heard that story.
The short list, I'll try to do the top 3. So the first one is not starting out with what your goals are and starting your own business.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. If you don't think about what you want out of this, what are your goals? And I had, I can just give an example. The other day, I got a call from one of my best friends. I've known him since we were 16, and he's a successful business person, and he had an idea for basically a new app. And he was very psyched about it. He wanted to buy it. My story, right? I want to buy it, not out there, but this will be great. And I listened to him explain what this idea was, and it was really a great idea. It really was. I think it would do well. But, he's roughly my age, we're, north of 60. I said, what are your goals right now in life? And he says, well, I want to, be able to have time with my family. I want to be able to have time with my grandkids. I want to work, but I don't want to have to work too hard. And I said, well, your idea is a great idea, but it's going to involve raising tons of venture capital. It's going to involve working like crazy and being completely stressed out. And so good idea, good goals, they don't match. And I think when we start businesses, sometimes we don't think through that aspect. So it's, if a solopreneur is starting out, are you doing it because you're trying to get rich? Well, then why are you foregoing employees, right? If you're not doing it to get rich, then you're doing it for some other reason. And if it's to have time with your family, well, don't take on a job that's going to involve a lot of travel, right? Because you're not going to. So these kinds of things that people need to think through before they even define their business, I think is a mistake that a lot of people make. The next one is when they do define their business, they say, well, I can help all these people, so that's who I'm going after. And it's, they don't realize how hard it is, especially today. And I'm kind of blown away compared to like the last time I really tried to get noticed in a business, which was probably the early teens, how hard it is to get noticed these days. And so that niching down, that you people should do and don't want to do, because I don't want to give up. I can help these 10 groups of people, and I don't want to give up, these 10 groups, 1/10 of it, because I won't, it's not as much business. I'm like, but you'll get more people in that 1/10 of the market if you focus on them than you will from all 10. So that's another mistake I see a lot of. And the last one's a little more, those are kind of strategic mistakes. The tactical one I see is when a lot of solopreneurs make their website, they use their H1 text, which is the kind of the big text on the top of the website and the hero, to put their name. And if people know your name, they already know where to find you, typically. And if they don't, you can put your name in there. So it's like you should be putting, what do you do? So that when you get there, because you got about 3 seconds nowadays. There was a time when people gave speeches like Abraham Lincoln 7 years ago, and those people had long attention spans. We're losing out to goldfish now. So that the H1 should be who you help and how, very succinctly, and then the H2 just under it, a little more detail about how you do it, so that when they get there and you get that 3 seconds of attention, they go, oh, I belong here, and they stick with it. So I think that's a mistake I see all the time. And, beyond that, there's lots of other things about websites that I think solopreneurs get wrong. And it's one of the things we're working on trying to help them with. But so that's, those are the most common mistakes. There are lots of others that, we all make, but that's why we have community to help each other.
Yeah. It's, as you're talking about that, I was just, kind of thinking through the last conversations I've had with a couple of friends. I last night spoke to someone who I've known since I was probably 8 or 10, and we're both, he's been starting a couple of businesses serially, just kind of closed one door, opened up another one. And so we're talking, and, we're solopreneurs and, helping each other. So it's, 30 minutes him talking, 30 minutes of myself, a little bit of back and forth, and trying to help each other. And I've got one other friend here in Portland. Also, we grew up in the Chicago area, same grade school, known each other since we were about 8.
That's great.
Same thing, starting over. And he sent me a message the other day. Let's be each other's cheerleader. Right. I love that. So it is this natural, I think, this natural draw to each other when you are a solopreneur, because it's a lonely life, but it's also, you're alone, but you're not lonely, I think, is this kind of the thing, because you're in a great space as a person. I think most people doing this that choose to do it, they might be alone, but they're not lonely, but they need the help of a community.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I hear a lot is, I have my family, I have, my friends, but I don't have anybody that understands what I'm dealing with. Yes. And that's what I think putting this community together has done, is it's like people can come in and they can just say, you get it, and it's just nice to feel that.
That is perfect. That's a perfect description of what it is, right? I've got all these people around me. I'm in the space that I love, but no one really gets the struggle.
Mm-hmm.
There's a real struggle.
Yeah.
I think you had mentioned something earlier about when people leave corporate, that freedom, right? That instant when you unbind yourself, from the chains in a way, because corporate is. I was so inspired. I wrote a song called "Free Man."
Oh wow!
When I had quit, and I had the conversation with my last boss, and I said, I'm out. Here's my last day. Let's do what we have to do to plan and get everything. And Yeah, it's pretty emotional when you sit down and you really realize, okay, I'm alone. Now I'm on my own.
Yeah.
Like there's no salary check coming in, there's no benefits coming in. There's no random bonus from some corporate, corporate shadow. No one's paying the bills.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I mean, and I have to say, from my own perspective, I know a lot of people that I talk to, the corporate life was killing them. Now,
Yes.
I was only working corporate for 3 years. I got out of college, went 3 years, went back at that MBA, like full-time, 18 months, and then never looked back.
Yeah.
But my
Yeah.
corporate experience, I loved it. I mean, I had 3 jobs in 3 years. One of them was terrible. I lasted a month. But the other two, I loved it. I had great bosses, great work.
Yeah.
So I don't have that same perspective of, taking the chains off. I had a blast, like I said, except for the one job in the middle of the two, that was horrific. But the fact is that, a lot of people don't have that experience. They are truly feeling trapped and just having their soul sucked out of them. And I guess I can't empathize. I guess I can, in the sense that 1 month seems like about 5 years of my life with that one company. But, for the most part, I have to sympathize more than empathize in that department.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think part of what happens, I think too, is, when you're youthful, you don't have responsibilities. You don't, the exit door is right there for you. And as you get older, you've got kids, you've got a mortgage, you've got, a lot of people depending upon you. And as the job goes on and you go up higher in the pyramid, the space gets tighter. The roles are
Mhm.
fewer, the moves,
Mhm.
it's harder to move. It's harder to strategize moving from one place to another. And I think that's where the chains come in, the binding comes in, because, you're a
Yeah.
bit, it's not as easy to move. And then the game is the risk. Let's say the stakes are higher, salaries are bigger, everything
Yeah.
is higher, right? The responsibilities are
And I
bigger.
imagine in a lot of places, the skills become smaller percentage of the path upward, and the
Yes,
politics becomes a larger percentage.
absolutely. And so that mind game stuff really becomes terrifying. And I think that's, where you end up with people who feel unchained, if you will, coming out of it.
One of the things.
How long
No,
have
no,
you
go
been
ahead.
doing Lifestyle? How long has it been going on? 2 years,
Well,
2 years or 18
no,
months?
I mean, I started working on it um, in my head in like 2017, like thinking about the idea,
Ah,
and
okay.
then started hitting it hard after we sold.
Yeah,
And
okay.
as I said, kind of heavily focused on the app. But then, as we realized the marketing path, I said, I've got to build. I the version of the true version of the story is we built a version of the app, and when COVID hit, we launched it early because we thought this would be a really good tool for people dealing with working remotely, and it would
Great.
be. But we
Right.
just launched it. We just went, boom, hey, here it is. Press release. Nothing happened. I mean,
Yeah.
again, launching nowadays, you launch like that, you're launching into the void. And
Yes.
back when I was doing something that was more focused, retail real estate, more focused thing, it was a little easier to do that. Probably be harder now just because, like I said, the noise level is so much higher. But, so we did that and then said, this isn't working. And then we started thinking about the solopreneurs. And so as we moved on, we said, we've got to build out this whole infrastructure. So we really went at it in terms of, we've got a podcast. It's in the top 5% globally for all podcasts, called the Aspiring Solopreneur. We've been doing these online events. We've got a blog. I think I might have mentioned we've recently launched. These are all free things. We've launched some paid tiers. We have office hours for people. We have an AI trained on all of our content, so that people can get their solopreneur questions answered in the context of solopreneurs. So we built out this whole ecosystem. So the app is a thing and it's important, but it's no longer the dog. It's a tail, and
funny.
yeah, because it's just we just, and this is what happens with businesses, right? You start out and you go in this way, and then you go, we got to go this way, or we got to go this way, and it's just, I mean, if you don't want to do that, it's very hard to be successful. I mean, look at, this thing is, I'm a solopreneur right now. I'm not sure it's going to stay that way for me forever with this, because if it gets bigger, it'll get hard to manage just with contractors. But you look at, companies like, I don't know, Airbnb, right? They started out trying to let people rent out air mattresses in their living room for people to stay when the hotels were full and things. And, if they hadn't pivoted, I don't know that would have been that big a business.
Well, I mean, so Amazon was a bookseller, right? Amazon was a book reseller.
Yeah, but he knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly.
Step one. Step one.
Think about if you were going to sell online when people weren't buying online, what would be the best thing to sell? Books, because it doesn't matter whether you buy it in the store or online. It's the same darn book, and you get the benefit of getting reviews. You're walking around the bookstore. You're like, you can read the jacket cover, but you can't find out what 180 other people thought about this book.
Yes. Yeah. When he was solving too, at the time, I think he was solving the IBSN, or you're able to find any book. And I think one of the challenges was you couldn't find books, like out of print books. He was solving some other strange problem.
Yeah.
And then, and it was a big hit. And then he was like, oh, might as well just sell books as regular books. Like, you mean I should just sell all the books? Yeah. And people are like, yeah, we want to buy all our books.
Interesting. From you. I didn't hear that, the early version of the story.
Yeah, he was solving something around availability of books and just distribution. And then ultimately people are like, yeah, we want to buy if I'm going to buy these weird books from you, I might as well buy all my books.
Right.
And then obviously now I just had an email conversation with somebody in China. I have a storefront on Amazon. So I do a couple of videos, and if people click on your video of a product and watch it, you get a commission. It's this kind of Amazon associates.
Yeah.
And so, now I have people in China sending me products to do videos of.
Interesting.
This is Amazon now. I don't think he had that problem in mind.
No. That's just, they just keep finding new ways. You get big enough, it's easy to monetize new things. But but just going back to the kind of the core here, it's just, you have to be ready to adjust as you move forward. And the other thing is, with the world changing so fast now, I mean, this whole AI thing is just nuts. And I mean, there's a lot of hype and a lot of nonsense going on with I think with AI, but there's a lot there and a lot of impacts. And people really need to start looking at, how am I going to change what I do, whether it's a business or a profession?
Yeah,
because there are impacts coming. Sure, there's opportunities coming. Dharmesh Shah, the CTO of HubSpot, I saw him speak. Oh, I am so sorry.
It's all right. It's a nice ringtone, though.
I thought I put it on Do Not Disturb, but anyway. So the
HubSpot guy.
Dharmesh Shah was speaking at the Inbound conference, and he said AI is going to take your job away and offer you a better one. And I don't doubt that, but you better be ready. You better be ready. So we're encouraging people to kind of look at, how can you use AI to help you do better, be more efficient? What should you avoid doing in order to, I mean, people are starting to lose their voice. There's a guy I love named Jay Kunzo, and he's on LinkedIn with a lot of content about storytelling, and that's his kind of entire focus. And he said that people are relying on AI to generate their content. He calls it a waterfall of gray, and he said it's going to be really easy to stand out against that if you're really uniquely you. And I think that's true.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, there's just too many ways to just use these tools to become mediocre. And so we need to be really careful as we adapt, to not fall into the traps of the what's easy but not helpful, but then to understand these technologies because they are helpful. I mean, I can't tell you how helpful I find ChatGPT, but not for writing my content.
Yeah, and I think that's the gray, right? That you're just going to get that it's all going to look the same and smell. The water will even have its own scent to it. You look at stuff that anything I generate from AI, I can look at it right away and just go, the words. It's not how I write. It's not how anybody writes.
And there are people that are teaching it to write more like them, and I think that's great. But you don't just take that stuff and copy and paste,
No,
because it's just
well, if they change the mothership algorithm stuff, a lot of that, you'll lose a lot of that spice. Your own particular kind of little flavor, I think, will fall off.
Yeah, I don't have any idea on that, but like I said, from my perspective, I think we want to help people. We have an event coming up. We have an event called Solar Pulse. Actually, the first event is coming up in April, and the entire topic is going to be on how can you train AI to be as useful as possible for you, but then also kind of focusing on not letting it try to make it into you, because then you will not stand out.
I'm using it now for this show. We will generate a few clips from AI, so we're able to upload the video, and it does it does its own random kind of randomish cuts. I mean, you have to look at each one and kind of figure out how, if it did get the essence. But if it generates 20 or so, you end up with 2 or 3 that are quite clever, and it puts in the subtitles, and it's a giant resource saver.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I love, and I mean, the idea, like for me, we all have our challenges, right? One of my big challenges is naming things, right? I can think of something, but what do I call it? And I just go into ChatGPT and I describe the product or whatever it is, the event, and I say, what would be some good names for this? And I don't know if I've ever used one of the names, but I've been inspired from the list to come up with one I actually like.
I'm kind of advising for a real estate insurance company, and same thing. We're trying to figure out what's our tagline, just endless prompting back and forth with ChatGPT, and it'll be some Frankenstein version of some of the phraseology and the words, but I don't think that it didn't hit. There wasn't anything I read that I went, oh my gosh.
Yeah, there
but
it
it's
is.
like, oh, that's a great, like the first part of the phrase. I love this piece.
Right.
And it's like, what's the second part? And it couldn't extract it out of the machine. So it's kind of sitting there, and we'll come back as humans after it cooks a bit.
Yeah.
Let's get another question out of the jar.
Okay.
You're such an interesting story. I want to talk a little bit too about my own journey, because it is like exactly what you had mentioned. So, question from the jar for Joe: why do some people find forgiveness hard?
Oh, I don't. That is not one of my challenges. Probably too far the other way.
Yeah.
I can't hold grudges. I mean, I don't hold grudges. I learned to stay away from certain people.
Yeah.
And I think there, if I really dug deep, I'd find 2 people in my life that I have a grudge against, but it's more just stay away from. So why can't people forgive? And I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't.
I love that. Like, you're looking at it going, I don't understand it either. Like, I think you really do have to let go. Obviously it's not, and you don't forgive for the other person. You're really forgiven for yourself. So you're not holding that.
Right.
And maybe that's something.
Well, if you want to give me another question from the jar,
I'll come back. I got one. I'll just share a little bit of my own journey. Then I'll pull one real quick. It is interesting that, like you were saying, that you start and you have to pivot, and you have to be able to, kind of know when that's time and follow the signs. And I did. I started with the jar, and I didn't quite finish the project all the way. It's a bit, I'd call it on pause. Along the way, I started another podcast from what I saw at Mental Health Today, talk about mental health. And then now I kind of realize that the jar belongs at corporate. Me sitting in a kitchen table is a bit selfish, in a way. It's this kind of perversion of hearing the story and holding the story, and try as I might to get it out there in the noise, very difficult. But I did see the value of it, and bringing it to the corporate table, and doing a round robin, letting people share their answer, and also being able to let other people hear, colleagues share these these questions, how they interpret the question, and then sharing their own story. Kind of fun to keep it, and now I'm on to the whole reason, in a way, I started the jar to give myself a little bit of a US story, was to do public speaking.
Okay.
And so that's finally kind of lighting, right? I've kind of lit that candle now, the public speaking part. So it is an interesting,
Cool.
It's a very strange journey, and I didn't see it like this in my mind's eye. But here I am, and open. I think one of the things was open to pivoting, staying open, that as beautiful as the idea is, it will change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not easy for people, I think, sometimes to give up on their babies.
Yeah. And it's hard to know exactly when it's time to pivot, because, there's sometimes you're like, do I need to stay with this, or is it
Yes.
time to rethink it? It's hard. I mean, I think to me, it's when you say, are my initial assumptions correct? So, for example,
is it still holding true?
right. My question was, my assumption was, will solopreneurs as a group can come together and be glad to come together and help each other, not have to focus on coaches or focus on consultants or whatever. And I tested that, and the Lifestar is not nearly as big as I want it to be. It's growing nicely, but it's, I want it to be much bigger. I want lots more people, but that assumption has proven true, right? These people come together and they're happy. They come back and they say, that was great. I love talking to those people. I'm working with this person now. I do these office hours, and we're, on helping people answer questions about whatever, lead generation. We have one on lead generation. We have one on getting started. And the people are also helping each other, right? So we'll be kind of say, oh, here's what you might want to think about this. And they go, oh, what about this? And so the assumptions are true. So it's a matter of sticking with it long enough to grow it. Whereas if people were getting together and going, well, I didn't really, they don't understand me. They don't get it. I'm different. I'd be like, well, our assumption's incorrect. We probably need to focus somewhere. But
yeah, that was, I think, one of my struggles was when to let go, when to pivot. And sometimes it's what to pivot to. It's time, but you may not see what that other door is yet. Where it's what your initial idea and your initial effort takes you somewhere, right? And it's opening another door. And it's, when do you see it? When do you open it? It's kind of one of those fun. It's going to be fun for you. You're going to have such a journey seeing all these people come together. And I just had this, the community may morph into something you're just going to look back and go, wow, because it'll be all these people helping each other, these other areas. And it's just grown beyond what you can even see.
That's what I love. If I'm the limiting factor,
yes,
it's not exciting to me, because, again, I'm a solopreneur. I don't want to work 20 hours a day. I really don't. I want time with my wife and my daughter and son-in-law and my other daughters that are farther away, who I have to travel to see, and my granddaughter. So it's like, for me, I don't want that. So the idea that it can scale and, turn into something where people are helping each other is, that runs the chills down my spine.
Okay. I don't know. This would be another, you're getting some rough questions. Another question from the jar, and there's different iterations of each jar, but I'll read this one as it is. I was tempted to change the one word, but I'll keep it as the jar presents it. In what ways are you a worse version than your younger self?
Well, certainly not in as good a shape. But I'll tell you what's worse: my guitar playing.
Oh, is it really? Is it gotten worse?
Well, I played professionally through high school. I played much less.
Wow.
I played professionally through high school and 3 years after high school. That's why my journey started late into college. I started college 3 years later than the normal track. I was playing music professionally, and I always wanted to be a great guitar player, and I was never going to get there. But I got pretty good, and now, because I play so little, just because I'm just doing this stuff, it's a shadow of its former self. So that's one way that I'm worse.
Well, my journey really started. I picked up guitar at 52.
Wow.
It was kind of unresolved business. I had one, in parochial school. I was taking lessons from the nun and trumpet
A
lessons.
nun taught me to play too, but I was 14.
Yeah, I was about 12. It might have been about 14. I might have been maybe even a little bit younger.
Yeah, Sister Julie.
And I can't remember I can still remember taking it into the convent. Thing was bigger. It weighed as much as I weighed, the whole case and everything. But it was unfinished business. I chose trumpet, over guitar because my trumpet teacher was a really good salesperson and, needed the money, I guess. And, convinced me that I needed to dump that guitar and, not get lost. And then I bought another one and I lent it somewhere and it never came back. And then I decided at 52, I was going to make one more crack at it and see where it went. And anyway, it's a long backstory. But it kind of led me in a strange way. It led me here. I wouldn't be in this chair had I not gone and decided to pick up and play guitar and buy the guitar. So you don't know where decisions in life and kind of those hankering things you want to do. So I encourage people, just do it. Just go start. And you don't know where that road, that first step down a new road, you don't know where it's going to take you. And
that's true.
There's a lot of power in that.
There's
a lot. Yeah, right.
Everything in my life, I look and go, wow, if I hadn't done that one thing, then all this stuff wouldn't have happened. If I hadn't gone to that Oktoberfest, I wouldn't have met my wife. It would have been different.
It is. It's a real thing, and I sometimes wonder, those magic. In my story, I walked into the Guitar Center. I'm sure you're kind of familiar with these, guitar showrooms, if you will. Beautiful, probably 200 guitars, at least 100 guitars hanging on the walls and in the center island, and just walking around and, quickly questioning my idea because it's intimidating, right? It's super intimidating, and you got people walking around, and I ended up face to face with somebody, this guy who had been kind of picking up guitars and playing on a stool and just looked like he was very familiar with the whole place and guitars. And just ended up face to face with him. And I just asked him, this is who I am. I'm 52-year-old insurance dude, unfinished business. I want to play guitar. I want to buy a nice one. I don't really know anything. What do you recommend? And he just looked at me and he goes, get the red one. And, you're just like, huh? Like, I'm not sure if he heard my question. And he goes, the one you see across a crowded room. Can't take your eyes off of it. The one you want to hold and never let go. And I was like, oh, boom. Okay. And, filled with confidence and filled with now, like, exactly. I knew right then which one to buy. Like, I already saw the red one.
Interesting. Okay.
And it was almost like he knew. It's like almost like, I'm not really sure it was a human. It felt like I look back and it was an angel. I'm pretty sure it was an angel somehow, that I happened to bump into and ask the question because it couldn't have been a human. Who says that stuff?
I know that's get the red one.
Get the red one. And it'd be a speech. It's definitely a speech for me because the red one led me to this, which led me to that, which, put this person in my path and put this person in my path. And so from that one statement, was really a domino effect. And I wonder how many, so many of us have stories like that. Somebody convinced you to go to Oktoberfest, or you went for whatever reason. And, one thing led to another. And if you look at, like you look at all those ping pongs that you happened from that one decision. Yeah. Let's grab one more question and then we'll do a little close. We'll wrap you up. All right. That you kind of,
give me an easy one.
Yeah, I know. Really strange. Yesterday, Joe, with the jar, I interviewed a gentleman and he gave an example. I'm going to try to remember the question, what was your job? It's like, what was your first job? And he asked the question in a story. He was answering a different question or telling part of the story. And then sure enough, About 2 questions later, that exact question came out of the jar.
Too funny.
It's really strange.
Yeah.
Really strange. Okay, this is a good one. This is a human question right here. This one, I don't think you'll have trouble with this one. Can you describe, so a question for Joe from the jar. Can you describe the lowest point in your life?
Yeah. It was right after high school, and I was playing music, and my dad, being smart, said, "Okay, do that if you want, but you got to get a job." And he said, "I'll help you find a job." And he got me a job working as a caster's assistant in a jewelry factory, which involved, basically melting down gold and silver, and mixing it with. So you got blast furnaces, and I mean it was grueling work. It was the company itself was a wonderful company. They treated you like humans. Cannot fault them, but the work by its nature was very hard and very repetitive. And as I started doing that work for a while and seeing these people that were, taking a ring, grinding off the stub and putting it in a box and doing this over and over again, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, I became convinced that there was nothing in life that would actually work out to be meaningful. So it was a very dark time in terms of just feeling like there was nothing, there was no point. There's just no point. I mean, I think it was just, acute depression. And I did the job for a while. Now I met this guy that was really smart, and he could do any job in the whole place. And he would go out every lunchtime and get stoned in order to make it tolerable, because he was just too smart to be there. And so he had to basically
just dumb himself down
in order to, and I just felt so bad about everything. So the solution was I quit and started a business. and within no time, I started a booking agency with our manager. We started, booking bands into venues, and traveling around and handing out. In those days, there was no internet. Handing out brochures and packages, and pretty quickly rebounded once I was kind of out there in the world doing my own thing. So that was the cure.
I love that. Never look back. What's your hope really for LifeStar? If you look a few years down the line, and what does it look like? What's that joy?
Oh, okay. It looks like there's a place on the internet where you go and you have access to all the information you need, the tools that you need to being this app for the task management app to kind of keep track of your life and keep organized, and the community all right there in this one place. So that you're never kind of alone in while you're acting as a solo, you're never alone. Also a place to find other people to work with. And that's already in the works. That's going to be up and running. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not up and running tomorrow or Monday. And we're calling that Solo Connect. But anybody that's in our Solo Suite Pro tier gets a listing so that other people can find them. If they need, if they need a copywriter, or they need a coach, or they need whatever it is, that they can go in there and find solopreneurs. Because, one of the other things that I've found is that solopreneurs are a great deal. You get a lot of high quality, high attention stuff for a really good price. And I think as people figure that out, they're going to realize that, it'd be nice to have a place to go. And I mean, we have this Fiverr and stuff for freelancers, but it's a little different, it's not just.
Yeah. So that's funny you'd mention this, because this was something I spent last night. My last tasks of the day were introducing people to each other, or introducing them to a service that I found valuable.
Yeah.
That was the last things on my list for the end of the day, was just write these emails, introduce a couple of people that I thought should know each other.
Cool.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Great way to close it. Joe, awesome conversation. Really interesting story. I love what you're doing. And
thank you.
And I think it's going to be gigantic and helpful.
Well, I hope that, anybody that's listening, that's a solopreneur or thinking about becoming a solopreneur, it's lifestar.com, but star has 2 R's. Otherwise, you're going to get the helicopter ambulance. But lifestar.com, there's a free tier, solo suite starter. You can get access to free events, a free online community, and lots of other stuff, content. So please, if you're a solopreneur or thinking about becoming one, join us there.
Yeah, and I'll for sure see you back, Joe. It's in it's always on my calendar anytime they pop up, and so I'll see you in one of the conversations.
Excellent.
Okay, thanks everybody for listening to The Humanist, and if you're catching us on the audio version, the audio platform, just jump down and give us a rating. If you've got any comments, any thoughts, suggestions, just drop those in as well. Joe, hang around for 20 seconds, and I'll see you on the other side.
Very good.
Welcome to the Humanist Podcast. I'm your host, Ken Stearns. Join us on a journey where we unravel the intricacies